Hey there, hi, my name is Mercury and I am the Trans Handyman, and today is a good day to help a stranger and learn something in the process. Let's go! Today's video is sponsored by iFixit. Now, let's hear what the question of the day is.
Hey handyman, my partner and I bought our first home this past fall, and oh my mermaids, is this a whole new world or what? So here's the situation we could use your help with. We want to replace the kitchen faucet. We've got the new kit and just need to install the new hardware. The old faucet had a right and left handle situation for the hot and cold water, and the new one is just a single handle that can be turned on from hot to cold. We usually keep the hot water turned off from under the sink unless we're using the sink because it leaks. Why does just the hot water side leak? And when we install the new faucet, will we keep needing to turn off the hot water? Or is there something we can do during install to stop the issue from happening altogether? Thanks for any help or your advice you can offer.
Wonderful, this is such a good question for today. So first and foremost, you're talking about a different system altogether. So the first faucet you're talking about is a stem faucet, and the other one you're talking about is what we call a cartridge faucet. So a stem faucet is two handles, a separate one for hot, a separate one for cold. And then a cartridge is one single handle that has both the hot and cold running through it. We're gonna show you the difference today and then walk you through all that. And we're also gonna talk about why you're only having a leaking problem for your hot water. Let's go! We're gonna take our handy dandy little faucets right here, and I'm gonna show you the difference between a two-handle faucet and a one-handle faucet. Now, not always, but most of the time, your two-handle faucet will have something called a stem. A stem is just basically how it's putting water into your faucet. You will see right here, we got a hot water stem and a cold water stem. Now, the stem is actually what's underneath the handle. If we take the handle off, you will be seeing an exposed stem that you can replace. So if you're having problems with your hot water leaking right here, or hot water not turning on, or trickling out, it may be the stem needs to be replaced. Or maybe the rubber gasket in it needs to be replaced to prevent the water from leaking. Those are really inexpensive, and all you have to do is take off your set screw right here and reveal the stem. So we're gonna do that before we do anything else, okay? You can come in closer here, and you can see there's a set screw in there. We're gonna take our handy dandy little Allen key set, and then we're just gonna wiggle it in there and turn that screw. We do not wanna lose a screw, and then we're just gonna loosen it up enough to take it off. Now that we got the handle off, you can see the exposed stem right here. Sometimes we'll have gaskets that are right around here that you can just take off and then put a new one on, or some type of O-ring, and those are very cheap. We're talking 50 cents, 60 cents. You just gotta get the right size. And if you're not confident that you can figure that out, you can get a whole assortment of O-rings from any hardware store, and that might help you out too. Now, all that being said, we are not necessarily talking about replacing this stem today, so we're not gonna go over every fine detail. But I do wanna be really specific that this assortment of faucet is a little bit different than the other kind that you're installing, but they're the same brand. And I like to stay in the same family tree because it prevents any problems you might be having with the diameter of your faucet. So you will see we have two holes right here, and you'll have holes in your kitchen sink themselves to make sure the holes can go down, okay? And I wanna make sure we can cover those holes up. And sometimes these designs are a little bit different, and people think you can take, this is a Moen, but you can take a Delta or a Kohler or a different type of faucet or different brand of faucet and replace it, but then holes are exposed and you're like, oh, poop, that's no fun. So I wanna make sure you're conscious of that. So I went out and got ourselves another Moen. It's the same price point. This was $80 and this is $80 too, but this is a single handle. And a single handle is what we call a cartridge. It's not always a cartridge, but it's most of the time a cartridge. And that just refers to what this does inside. So where a stem is specifically for the temperature it's being given, a cartridge can handle both different kinds of temperature, extreme cold, extreme heat. Where a stem, it can handle either hot or either cold, but not the same, okay? So this is a dual action essentially. But we're gonna open up it right underneath here in the set screw like before, and we're gonna see the cartridge and how that looks a little bit different. We're gonna get nice and close here. Spin it off. Again, you don't need to take it all the way out, just enough to loosen it up and then pull off the handle, and look at that. Look how different that looks. Now, you can take this whole ridge part off and get even more close to it, but if you're having a problem with your cartridge, you can typically get cartridge replacements if you need to. Now, how do you know you need a cartridge replacement? If you're having a problem with leakages, it could be the cartridge is going bad. If you have a problem with your cold water running fine, but your hot water not, that's when you replace the cartridge. The cartridge is saying, I'm not doing my job, get me out of here. Okay, so that being said, I think that you are gonna be in a great hands. Now, will the problem be solved of the leaking issue by just replacing it with a cartridge, a whole new kitchen sink? And my instinct is to say, yeah, if the leak is happening from the handle itself, you will have this problem be solved. You won't even think about it anymore. But if the problem is happening underneath the sink, then it might be some type of a different issue. But if it's happening here, which I expect it is, then when you replace it with this, you won't have the issue anymore because it was more than likely a bad O-ring that was going bad in the stem handle. Now, there is one distinct difference that you will see underneath the sink that I want to point out before we go on for the day. And that is how this is hooked up. Sometimes you will see that the two-handle one has two full supply lines coming right from it, and then you can connect those supply lines to the incoming lines underneath your sink, okay? This one does not have it. It has two different brackets that all you have to do is loosen up these brackets like this, and then take it off, and that's it. This typically rides right on top of your sink with this to protect your sink from getting scratched up and damaged. So these are the only things that hide underneath your sink, and that's as easy peasy lemon squeezy to pull it right out, okay? Now, over here is a similar design, similar thought, but now instead of two, it has one. So all we gotta do is loosen this up. Sometimes you need an adjustable pliers, sometimes you need a crescent wrench. They're all done a little bit differently. I love recommending a basin wrench, and you will see later on in this episode what a basin wrench is. But that all being said, we're gonna loosen this up, and then you're gonna see how this one comes off too. They gave me a lot of threads. Hope your day's going good. Okay, there we go. You got it off, and then we can pull this off, and you will see that this one rides underneath your sink, and this rides on top, I believe. No, I'm wrong. This rides on top, and this is the only thing that goes underneath. So just like the one before. And then these hook up right to your supply lines, and then you're good to go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and I think we're about ready to go on to the next question for the day. But boy, look at that! You learned something new today. Isn't that exciting? So let's go! And now we're ready for the next question for the day.
Oh my god, so I didn't know we get to do this. Mercury, Stardust, I have maintenance questions for you. Alright, so I recently moved in with somebody I met, and we're roommates now, and I didn't know that there were so many problems with the new apartment. So for starters, the sink here, like if you try and like turn it on, the whole like faucet piece is broken. And the thing is, I did go to HVAC school. I want to do this myself and test my capabilities. Now what I know about faucets is usually I don't know, can I take this off? Can I take this off to access a screw, or do I have to go underneath the sink?
Well, hey there, that's such a good question, and I also love that you went to HVAC school, so way to go! I think you're gonna have a great time to do this because this is a very straightforward repair, so we're gonna show you on one of our little faucets how to do this job. So let's get a little messy and get the job done! we're gonna grab our handy dandy bathroom faucet right here, and we already made it nice loosey-goosey just for you. And we're gonna take a look underneath the sink and see why it's so loose, okay? So let's take it up, look underneath, and see what's going on. You will see right here that there's 2 plastic nuts. Now typically, you have metal ones underneath your sinks, both your kitchen and your bathroom. But this one is these little plastic ones, and that's very lucky, but typically you don't have that problem, and they will break off. These little handles right here do break off because, again, they're cheap plastic. But in this case, what you can do is tighten them down nice and tight by hand. And then once they're nice and tightened down, you will see that we took care of that problem just by tightening up those nuts. So we no longer have a loosey-goosey issue. But in most cases, you won't have that. So I'm gonna show you how to tighten up those nuts down below and to make sure that we can make sure nothing's gonna be nice and loose on you going forward, okay? Right here, we have what we call a basin wrench. A basin wrench can get up in there in a nice tight space. You will see I'm crammed in here. I'm like a sardine right now, but that makes it really hard to get up in here. That's a tight spot. So using a regular pliers or a wrench just doesn't cut the job. That's why a basin wrench, because they can run you between $15 and $25, is gonna be the way to go. It extends all the way up like this, and this head comes down like this. You can see the basin wrench has these little grooves right here that fit around the nut. This is a plastic nut, but if it was a metal one, it would have sides that you could also fit the grooves into. And then you just fit them in there and you try to spin it around. You will need to adjust the basin wrench fairly often, but this will fit in here a lot easier than other types of pliers and wrenches. And then we just turn it on the base of the handle like this, and then we're all good to go. Now, we had a pretty easy time tightening all that up underneath there, but sometimes because of the metal, we don't have any luck. It gets really stuck and it's hard to deal with and it's a nightmare. But here's the good thing. We already know that this is a stem because we learned that in the previous question, right? This is 2 little stem handles, not a cartridge. And underneath there, we also learned how to take it all apart and work with it. We know enough about this now to handle a hard obstacle. In life, sometimes we are given some awful cards to deal with, and we have to deal with stuff that other people gave us. We didn't want this faucet that has a corroded nut underneath, but sometimes we just gotta deal with it, okay? So if you hit an obstacle where you can't get this sink off, then you can always cut it apart. You're not gonna use this sink, you can get one for $60 to $70 to $80, make it a replacement, and it will look like brand new for you and it will get the job done. Obstacles are difficult and they're frustrating and they make you feel like you did something wrong. But often, obstacles are things that are left behind from others that we are forced to deal with. And I think you're doing one heck of a job. There you go, we learned so much today. Boy, did we learn a lot today, but we only learned a lot because other people asked the questions. And we'll never know something if someone isn't brave enough to ask that question. So you might be a little bit scared, a little bit freaked out to even ask a question that you're wondering in your head. But if you don't do it, who will? Maybe, just maybe, today we all learned something, and that is the best kind of day. So remember, you're worth the time it takes to learn a new skill. Have a good day, take care, and bye-bye. It's no longer loosey-goosey. There you go, we learned so much today. Oh my God. This is the most awkward. Hold on. Okay. This is why they don't say, oh my God, you coming out of the sink? They say coming out of the closet. A lot easier. Could you imagine just a whole bunch of queers coming from underneath the sink?